Hello? Hey, Fatima. You are on mute. We can't hear what you are saying, Fatima.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Hi.
That's perfect.
Great. Your video, Tlingiwe, is coming with a pink background. I'm not sure why, so we can't, yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. I don't know what. I don't know how to use this. Oh, sorry.
No.
I don't know how to make it better.
Hi, Tlingiwe. Okay, your video is still with the pink.
Let me see if it's the room or it's the camera.
Okay, yes, that I was gonna suggest maybe it's the lighting where you are.
No, not getting any better.
No, technology.
Maybe try and use my iPad. I
Okay.
really don't know.
Do you
Uh,
usually
in
use
my-
your laptop for your conference calls, and is it usually fine?
Yes, I was on Zoom this morning. It was perfectly fine. So
Oh,
I really don't know. Manager, have you joined? Manager was struggling to join earlier.
Yes, I see she has joined, and Tulisi is. Hi, ladies.
Can you hear
Let me also just try to call the IT guys at work.
Can you hear me, Fatima?
I can hear you now, Tulisile. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Oh, hi. You can call me Koli.
Collie. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's saying you were, oh, her screen is not clear.
Yes, we've tried twice. Her lighting is coming with that pink tint, so she's just going to try logging with her iPad for us.
Oh, okay.
And Mamecha had joined, but I see she dropped off. I think she's also struggling.
Oh, okay. How many people are you expecting, Fatima?
When we checked yesterday, about 60.
You?
And yes, and we've been trying to advertise a bit more today, so hopefully we may have a few more.
And how have been your other events? I saw the one with the COVID Relief Fund.
Okay, we are.
Is that better, Fatima? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me now, Kengiwe?
Yes.
Great, welcome. Yes, much better.
I don't know what's happening with my computer.
No, this works. We're just waiting for Mamecha to log in and join us, and we will then start off. So we're live, we're on, and I've just let the attendees know we'll be starting shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Mamecha.
Hello.
Okay, so you have to.
There we go.
Great.
That's better.
Much better. Great. Thank you. Okay, so we can get started.
Are we live?
Yes, we are. We are. Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the AWCA Entrepreneurs Forum Mahube Roundtable. My name is Fatima Mahmoud, and it's an honor to be your facilitator today for this very relevant webinar. You've all heard in terms of the economic recessions, downgrades, and COVID-19, it hasn't been easy for South African businesses. Stats SA also released that the South African economy recorded its third consecutive quarter of economic decline, falling by 2% in Q1 2020. when our finance minister made his supplementary budget speech, you know, the update in the news was glum. We can expect a global contraction for 2020 of 5.2%, and this pandemic is going to bring about the broadest collapse in per capita income since 1870 that South Africa has seen. So whilst businesses navigate through these challenges, we seek to have a discussion and understand how entrepreneurs have managed their finances, what funding options are available for companies, and how we can work together to come out of this together. Today, we have the privilege of being graced with our panelists who have demonstrated how vital it is to evolve and adapt in such a critical time. And I'd like to thank all of you for making your time available today for this conversation we're going to have. Before we get started, just some housekeeping rules for this webinar. During the duration of the webinar, if you could keep all your cameras and audio switched off. You're welcome to ask questions in the live Q&A box, which will be on the right-hand side of your screens. If your questions are selected, we'll address them as we're having the conversation or at the live Q&A section of this webinar. With that, I will start with presenting our panelists to you. Today, we have a powerhouse with us of ladies, and first up, I'll introduce Mamecha Moshe, who is the CEO of Moshe Capital. She's got 13 years of finance experience in the corporate finance, equities, capital markets, debt capital markets, Black economic empowerment, accounting, auditing, and corporate tax. She's the founder and CEO of Moshe Capital, as well as an executive director of Identity Mineral Resources. And she also sits on the board of Altec Nesta, a qualified chartered accountant, as well as an MBA graduate from the Global Executive Program at the Columbia Business School and London Business School. We also have Hlengiwe Makatini, who's the Executive Venture Capital and Corporate Finance at the National Empowerment Fund, chartered accountant who's also worked in various divisions previously at Investec Bank as part of her articles, and she spent a lot of her time in the internal audit, finance, and treasury functions. After completing her article, she joined Standard Bank Retail Division as a management accountant for the Business Operations Division. And then we also have Tholi Ntanzi, who's the CFO and partner at Heritage Capital. Tholi was previously the fund CFO at Sanlam Private Equity, and she had looked after a portfolio of 17 investments valued at 2.7 billion. She's worked on project finance and equity transactions valued at over 350 million in the healthcare, pharmaceutical, and manufacturing industries, and a chartered accountant as well. So with that, warm welcome to all the panelists. Thank you for making the time and for joining us. So to kick off our discussion and start us off, Mamecha, I'd like you to let us know, how has Moshe Capital been financially impacted by the current crisis, and how has the company managed during this time?
Thank you, Fatima. Can you all hear me? Wonderful. Thank you, Fatima, and thank you for Oka for this invitation. It's always a pleasure to share experiences with other women in the industry. And it's good to see my friends also on the panel who I've known for many, many years. So it's such a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I wanted to share an article. So maybe if you give me a second and see whether I can actually share that. I had prepared something for our conversation this afternoon.
Sure. There's a share content button. So.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, I think maybe as I start talking, I'll tell you, I thought before we even talk about, for those who do not know who Moshe Capital is, before we start talking about how we have been affected by COVID-19, maybe just give a bit of a brief background on Moshe Capital. So Moshe Capital is we are a 100% Black women-owned South African company There we go. Right. I'm hoping that everybody can see the presentation. All right. It looks like it's upside down.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't worry. I will actually end the share. All right, I'll just talk to who we are and everything. So Mosha Capital is a South African 100% Black women-owned advisory and investment firm. We have been in the market for close to 7 years now. And in our advisory business, we have a corporate finance house, as well as a management consulting business. And in that business, to date, we've closed deals of over 10 billion, across industries. And we also have an investment arm where we have 4 investments in there. Now, talking to how COVID has actually affected our business, I'm going to touch on both the advisory business and the investment business. I mean, firstly, like everyone else, I think COVID has affected a lot of people. And it all starts with employees and it starts with health. When COVID-19 started, we actually found that, you know, as any company does, in the first instance, we went out and called our staff to talk about COVID-19 and how it will affect us. And this is obviously in terms of our crisis management strategy. So I guess, you know, the one other thing, we're FSCA regulated, and you take these things for granted when at inception, where, you know, you have to have all these policies for different things. And when it's happening, you feel like we're just doing admin. So the first thing that we did was go to our crisis management strategy and say what needs to be done. And part of that, we then called a staff meeting. And believe it or not, within our staff, even before lockdown, there was already someone who had been in contact with a COVID-19 case. So case number 9 was in touch with one of our employees. And that in itself, you know, told us, one, the importance of ensuring that you always have your policies and your procedures in check at any given point in time. 2, ensuring that your staff is safe at all times. I mean, we went into lockdown a week before lockdown happened. And then the second thing I want to talk to is around the financial impact. Our company, as I mentioned, we're 6 years old and turning seven this year. So there are 2 sides to financial impact. The first side is around your own company, and then your clients after that. And then the third on your investments. Polly might disagree and say we put our investments first. But on our own company, I always said, I mean, to our investee companies, how long is a piece of string? Because they kept asking, how long should we prepare for? And, you know, our cash flows, we have cash flows for the next 3 months. And I think all of us will agree that when we started, it was preparing for 6 months. Then you're like, it's preparing for 12 months. Then you want to prepare for 24 months. Because that in itself, you know, I loved what Jack Ma says. He said, if you're a business and you survive in the current environment, you've done well. So this is not really always about profitability. So we made sure that internally as Mosha Capital, we can actually, you know, make sure that our cash flows are right, and then make sure that the cash flows of our companies are also right. So the second step was looking at our investee companies. We were quite fortunate that most of our investee companies could actually survive this period. But what it actually meant, again, it's the power of management teams. When we invest, we always take it, well, I think, you know, people take it for granted when we say that the first thing you look at, it does not matter how good a product or how good a service the investee company is, one of the most critical things is your management team. So we found that where the management teams of these companies were resilient, efficient, and also honest, and honest being also a critical part because you want to know the truth of how deep the problem is on day one, because then you have what it takes to manage the situation. So where we had that, we found that we were more successful. And then the other things that I want to talk about on what happened in our own business is pivoting. We had to pivot the business a little bit to do things that are now getting aligned to where the future is going. And we worked with our investee companies to do the same. So obviously, step one is making sure that you have sufficient liquidity and cash reserves. And then where possible, make sure that there is cost cutting and capex reductions. And once that's done, obviously for us, there was suspension of dividends. In some instances, there needed to be restructuring and retrenchments or hiring freezes. But then what also helped, which speaks to what Hlengiwe does, is with all the COVID-19 relief funds, the next step as we looked at cash flows was preparing our clients on how they need to look at their cash flows and what relief funds are out there that they can tap into. So starting with the ones that you don't need to pay for, so like your UIF relief funds. But also we found ourselves as a portfolio manager having to fight our clients' battles. One of the things that we found out on the COVID-19 relief funds that are linked to the banks was that there were very stringent clauses in there. So in the first instance, we had to fight with the bank, but we realized that it's a bigger fight than the bank. Then we had to, report it to SAMCA. Then we had to, talk about it externally so that people know, and then eventually fought those battles. But the most important was also that, portfolio management and working with your management teams and ensuring that financial needs are dealt with from internal sources, then to easily accessible sources, then to relief funds, and then only then to other sources. And from our advisory business, I think most of our clients, because they're blue chip listed companies, they already had policies and procedures in place to deal with these kind of issues. And on our mining clients, and also they were fortunate because they could open the industry quicker than others. So yeah, that's really how we dealt with it, ensuring that we are fine, ensuring that our investee companies are fine, and ensuring that our clients are fine. But again, the power of great management teams and leadership was critical in this instance.
Thank you. You've touched on such key items, and when you study as chartered accountants, something that you said really stuck out. It's always right, profitability, and now we're all looking cash flow, and businesses were so focused, and I think this has realigned to ensure, and I hope it's going to be a sustainable change, that businesses don't only look at profitability, and cash flow now also is sitting as an important aspect, and people, because no matter what, even with the Industrial Revolution, and 4IR that everyone talks, if you don't have the right people, nothing is really going to work. Thank you for sharing that. Hlengiwe, I'll come to you now, and I wanted to hear, following on from that, what has been the general reaction from entrepreneurs during this crisis that you're seeing, and especially through the NEF? Mamecha referred to certain items. What have you seen coming through?
Thank you, Fatima. Good evening to the ladies. Yeah, it's very nice. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the panel because it was all faces I could recognize and good friends of mine. So I'm very honored to be with the ladies on the panel. So maybe just briefly on who the NEF is before I talk to the question of the reaction of the different entrepreneurs that we deal with. So for the ladies, I'm sure everyone at OCA should know who the NEF is, given that your president is from the NEF. But we are an agency of the DTIC now, the DTI in the olden days. And our focus is really to support Black entrepreneurs in their journey. So whether you are starting up a new business, whether you are buying into an existing white-owned business, or whether you want to grow your own existing business, we are your partners as the NEF if you're a Black entrepreneur. So, obviously then our entire portfolio is comprised of Black entrepreneurs from various sectors, various backgrounds, and various levels of professionalism, if I can call it that. But what was very interesting is that, as a business, as the NEF, obviously the pandemic affected us, and our response, the business continuity plan was put, into real practice. Can we work from home? And because the need from our entrepreneurs just spiked. So you could not say we're having a total shutdown where we can't work because the need was even greater. And we did an immediate analysis to say, so what does this mean for our portfolio for the hundreds of investees that we have? And we found that actually, which talks what you were saying, that businesses are realizing that cash is king. Only 53% of our portfolio had cash reserves to last them for 3 months. Everyone else, didn't know what to do at the end of March because 59% of our investees were on total shutdown. There were no operations. They could not do anything. So if you're in manufacturing, if you're in construction, if you're in tourism, there was a complete shutdown. So there were absolutely no revenues coming, but they had, obligations to take care of. So that was the biggest challenge that our entrepreneurs had to say, so what do we do? Do we immediately shut down our businesses? I mean, we have funded businesses that are in the logistics space in terms of transportation. Travel between provinces was totally shut down. So if you are in intercity bus business, there was no business for you. And there were no reserves. Businesses did not have reserves at all. And so 25% of our clients were operational fully. So there would be like service stations and so forth. But even those that were operational, the challenges they found that because everyone was working from home, no one was needing petrol or diesel. So their volumes, some of them dropped by half, some of them, they only achieved a third of what they normally achieved. So the issue that, people needed cash became very apparent, and we had to quickly think about what are the things that we can do to respond to the needs of the entrepreneurs. And as the lockdown regulations were being relaxed, now they're faced with new issues of compliance. We are an older organization. We're still working from home because the compliance regime is just too hectic. And it is correct for it to be such because it's people's lives that we are dealing with. You can't just allow people to go back. I mean, we are still working from home, and on a daily basis, we are getting information about a colleague who has tested positive and so forth. And you can just imagine if everyone was back in the office, the chaos that would have caused. So now we have to try and assist our clients to say, what are the ways we can assist you to be compliant, where you don't have an option to work from home. If you're in construction business, that option doesn't exist for you. You have to be on site to deliver. So those are the challenges that entrepreneurs, were faced with. And there's a lot of different things that government has done. But as Mameja was saying, we realized that the biggest package that was put out there was inaccessible to our entrepreneurs, to say the least. The one that, some businesses could access was from SEFA. But that facility was like 500 million. I mean, can you imagine the extent of SMEs that I need? It was fully committed within 3 weeks of the facility being available, which then, had to take all of us back to the drawing board to say, what is it that we can do for entrepreneurs? So it is still, a continuing challenge, because now people need money. Traditionally we'll go and do due diligences. Yesterday we were having a discussion with the investment professionals to say we can do the desktop, but some businesses you need to, if you want to find a service station, you need to go there. You need to see, what's around, what other service stations are there. You can't just do a desktop. So what do we do? So those are all the challenges. People need money. People who have the opportunity to advance those loans and funding to them can't travel. If you have a client who's in Cape Town who needs help, even though there are flights, people are still a bit uncomfortable to go to the airports and so forth. So those are all the challenges that entrepreneurs that we deal with, which obviously is the same target bucket as the entrepreneurs we're talking to this evening. That there is a dire need for cash flow. But the challenge, one of the things we're saying to ourselves as the NEF is that it's fine. We can give clients moratoriums, payment holidays, but the question becomes, as you continue to accrue this interest, what happens beyond the 6 months? And I must say that we had to take the bold decision to go to our board and say, for the clients that we know that they really can't afford to pay us right now, let's just zero the interest for the next 3 months. It's a hit on our own income statement as a business. So we then have to find other ways to say, where else can we find savings to literally subsidize those businesses? Because if you say don't pay, but when we resume 3 months' time, we start catching up on the old interest, it becomes a futile exercise for all concerned. So yeah, it is, and nobody knows when things are going to get back to normal, especially for our tourism businesses.
Thank you. Very sobering thoughts, and you are right. Even within discussions that we have with entrepreneurs, that interest portion is the biggest one, because yes, you may have that, but what happens, because the income that you've lost in terms of generating, and with the market and the economy opening up slowly and some not even opened, how are you going to recover that much? Your volumes won't even be that high. But it's good to hear that the NEF is looking and taking that into consideration, because that then shows the empathy and the human aspect that we're looking into for this. And we're not saying we have the solutions, but at least we're open to those discussions and understanding the entrepreneur's plight. That was really nice to hear. Thank you for sharing. Xoli, I will come to you now, and on your side, change and the other panelists have also spoken. It really can be difficult. Humans are creatures of habit, and it can be even more overwhelming to embrace during a time of normality. I mean, you can imagine at a time of crisis. How has your firm adapted to this change in terms of the way businesses access and use funding? What have you seen?
Thank you so much, Fatima. And thank you to the OLCA leadership for including me in the roundtable discussion. And it's good to be here and a pleasure to share the platform with ladies who are my friends and ladies who I look up to.
Xoli, I'm not sure if your speaker volume is low. I can hear you, but it's very faint.
Is it? Okay. Can I try the phone? Can you hear me?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was saying it's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation to the OLCA leadership. And it's good to be in the panel with my friends and ladies that I look up to.
As you've said, Fatima, change can be overwhelming. Routine is quite comforting and quite great for us as human beings, but it's inevitable that there will be change, that there will be a crisis at some point in our lives. So in Robin Sharma, in his book, The 5 a.m. Club, he says that change is very difficult at first, and then it's messy in the middle, but it's beautiful in the end. So at Heritage Capital, we've had to look at change and look at opportunities and find opportunities to move ahead and continue with the business. For background, to those who don't know, Heritage Capital is a fund manager managing institutional investors' funds and investing in unlisted investments in South Africa and in the African area. And we're managing 5 investments at the moment. And it was established in 2015. And as the change has been happening, the low economic growth and also the COVID-19, we've had to ask ourselves, and I think for all the entrepreneurs, we all have to ask ourselves, why are you in business, firstly? Are you in business for the long term, or are you here for instant gratification? And also, we've had to embrace the change, and we can see that it's actually a test of how was your condition as a business before you went into the crisis. So it's a test of how are your internal controls, how is your cash management, how strong is your management team, how are you going to cope? Do you have insurance, even though it can be evasive? Do you have plans in place to cope and manage the change? So we've had to ask ourselves those difficult questions and also ask our management teams those same difficult questions. So in terms of business access to finance, as Heritage Capital, we've had to firstly focus on our portfolio, like my panelists were saying, in terms of focusing on the portfolio during this time of crisis. And thankfully, of the 5 investments, only one had short-term cash requirements, and we've had to look into our own available dry powder, which is limited. And we've had to, number 2, work and collaborate with other financial institutions. So we've had to knock on doors of other people, such as the DFI environment, such as the NEF within UOF and the IDC, CFA, knock on every door that is available for our investments to actually go through this difficult time. And we've had to help the management team, because it's quite difficult when you're looking for funds. They want to know, how are you going to pay the money? What is the focus going forward? And it's been really difficult to forecast what's going to happen in the future. And at least now we've got some history, April, May, and June trading to give us more confidence when we knock on doors to say, what is the business going to do going forward? So we've had to also work closely with the management teams. Private equity environment and the model is that you support and invest in different companies and rely on them because they know more about their business than you. However, we've had now to actually talk to the management teams even on a daily basis to support them and help them in the different cycles as the business change. But yeah, we've had great support from the banks and also from government. Like Mamesh was saying, the UIF with the temporary relief scheme, and also SARS giving us and the different businesses the pay-as-you-earn relief that you need. So yeah, and the different DFIs have also been very supportive in assisting our businesses to go ahead. The conversations continue, and we're hopeful to be able to manage in this new normal.
Thank you, Toli. You mentioned some important things, and I think, it's one of those where change is inevitable. You captured that so well, and this should be our new normal. Maybe for some of us, the crisis highlighted it because we get quite comfortable, but we should start ensuring that we become comfortable with these things. And I mean, the common thread that all of you have said in terms of policies and controls and compliance, and we're the custodians of this, and sometimes even as entrepreneurs, we may think, I'm just going to skip this for now because is it really important? And you come to an instance like this. Even in terms of accessing funding, I'm sure all of the organizations ask for this as well. So to have our house in order with that, it's just so critical and so important. Thank you. Mamecha, I'd like to come to you now and ask, we've seen there's different portfolios, we've seen you need to ensure that you spread your risk, etc. And more so in this time. What advice can you give to our entrepreneurs, to ensure that they don't get heavily exposed to one specific sector and that could minimize some of the risk that they would see?
Thank you, Fatima. Once I'm done, I would like Toli and Kengo actually to weigh into this question because, we come from different worlds. We currently do not run a private equity fund. So we are doing proprietary investments and are looking to raise a private equity fund. But in the first instance, what I want to mention to every entrepreneur on this call is that when you build your business right from the outset, you need to look at yourself already as a globally competitive business because it makes it easier much later to look back and say, okay, I took the hard steps, but it was for this reason. And the reason I mention that is, when we started investing, we had to ask ourselves, what kind of an investment firm do we want to be? In fact, it's the same with our advisory business. What kind of an advisory business do we want to be? And on the advisory side, we told ourselves we want to be of global standards. If someone wants work from Goldman Sachs and from us, if you remove the logos, they mustn't know where it came from. So that was important, right? So in a similar manner on the investment side, we said we put an investment strategy. And in that investment strategy, obviously is how do I want my investment portfolio to look like ultimately? And the other thing is, when you're still doing proprietary investment, it's easy to derail and invest in what you like. So what we did is we also made sure that we have an investment committee that holds us accountable on what we do. And already treated ourselves like a fund. So, when we are going to investment committee, we don't just go there and have a nice chat together. What we do is we prepare an investment committee report the same way that Kenki would do it and circulate it up front and make sure that it's a robust discussion. That, I think, makes sure that what you invest in is of quality right from the beginning. And therefore, when you get to times like this, you don't have to say, oh my gosh, I'm over-invested in this or over-invested in that, and you even remember why you made those investments. And when I saw this question, I wanted to extend it further. I know it's not what you asked me, but we on our advisory business, we have partners in London for access to the European markets and in China to access to the Eastern markets. And I want to touch on, and especially because, I assume that most of the entrepreneurs even on this webinar are young entrepreneurs. So one is making sure that your portfolio is airtight, but the other is making sure that you're investing in sectors of the future. So, there have been a number of new sectors that are coming up. And I'm excited because, when I look at it, we have a lot of tech companies that are coming up and a lot of very interesting sectors. So as an example, there's a trend to move towards I would call it lifestyle and health. I don't know how to combine the two, but organic food is becoming more prominent to all of us. Where our food is sourced from is important to all of us. And then there's a second part, which I think all of us have seen, which is the obvious one, which is tech. But tech comes in many forms. So, I don't know, personally, I can't remember the last time I went to an ATM because everything I do, financial services are different. And I would like to challenge the entrepreneurs on those calls for all of us to extend ourselves to become the leaders in coming up with these technologies that make sense for emerging markets or for South Africa. I was I don't know where you guys were ordering your food from. When we were in lockdown level 5, I was ordering from Zulzi, which is a South African company that, and they extended themselves. Not only that, but they're now doing the Checkers 60-minute delivery app. But there are many more other technologies that are coming up. So in the healthcare sector, in financial services, and insurance, we need more and more of these companies that will service our industry and actually become global players. And then the last sector I wanted to touch on is an extension of telecoms. Most of us come from townships or rural areas. I saw a great opportunity, and I kept thinking, why is there no one making sure that my mom who's in Lewahome can get access to Wi-Fi? So there's great opportunities for all of us, not only to pivot our businesses into not only to create a risk-adjusted portfolio, but to also pivot into technologies of the future and be the leaders in them. Thanks, Fatima. Yeah, I want to give the mic to Hlengiwe and for the understanding.
Yes. Hlengiwe, do you want to go next then, so you can also give us your views on this?
Yeah, that's fine. So, I think in terms of the sectors, what I realized for entrepreneurs is to be agile and to adapt quickly to the circumstances, not to sit in your corner and say, oh, this is what I'm used to, this is the way I've been running my business, oh, this is the sector I'm used to, these are my clients, what do I do now? You need to, as an entrepreneur, you just need to think on your feet and say, how do I adapt into the circumstances and actually get opportunities out of the crisis? And there's a business we find that it's 2 young guys, they're less than 30, brilliant guys who are in the tech space. And their business model was focused on artificial intelligence for the motor vehicle industry, and they have good contracts. But when the lockdown happened, they can't go and install the gadgets for the system to collect the information. They didn't just sit back and say, oh my God, what's going to happen to us now? Immediately, because they understood themselves to be in the tech space, they looked for opportunities. Schools had to be online. It meant that schools needed apps, they needed solutions for them to be able to teach the kids whilst they were at home. And during this crisis, they now found a new opportunity. So I think what is important for the entrepreneurs is to really always look for opportunities, even in difficult times. We also have a business owned by a woman in Cape Town. Her job was just to make uniforms. That's all she has been doing for years. Make uniforms for Pick n Pay. So when this happened, she came to us and said, actually, can you guys help me get the machine to do the medical masks? So I don't want to do the cloth masks because those ones are great, but the demand is likely to fizzle as soon as the things get back to normal. Now she does uniform, but all of a sudden she does masks, and when she did the masks, they were good quality. Then her new clients are like, but you can also do the disposable PPE for us. So she's doing those gowns for the. So it's adaptability. You must understand the industry, the sector you are in, but don't get married to the clients that you have. It's important to take care of them, but when things change around you, you need to think fast. You can't just sit in your corner. Look at us. We're getting used to the idea of engaging with each other through technology. In the past, we had to be all in the room together. So it's the different sectors that were affected different ways. But for example, we then had to respond by making sure that the essential products are available. People had to adapt quickly to say, how do I move from just manufacturing normal detergents to learn how to manufacture sanitizers and so forth? Understand the sector, be adaptable, and respond to the needs of the market. And actually, some of the businesses are struggling, but some of the businesses are now growing because of this crisis and this pandemic. So I think, it's important to diversify. Obviously, some of the businesses are very sector specific, but also understand how you can adapt your business to respond to the need that is there at a particular point in time.
Sorry, Fatima. From my side, in terms of portfolio diversification, it's important that you build your portfolio not in one sector. I know there are other funds that are specialists and they specialize in a certain sector, but even then, they don't invest in the same thing. You must cover different areas in that same sector so that you just manage your risk so that one investment can be deemed in a crisis like this to be essential, but another one is not. And then together they balance themselves out. And in terms of building a portfolio as a fund manager, I think you must be disciplined to stick to your strategy. Know what is it that you're investing in and stick to that instead of being opportunistic to say, oh, okay, let me find a quick business for sanitizers. You must almost be forward-looking to say, okay, these are the businesses that I want to invest in. For example, at Heritage Capital, last year we said we want to invest in a healthcare business, and we did and closed the deal at the beginning of 2020 in January. And in March, the lockdown happened, and then now that business is benefiting from the crisis that is there. So you almost have to stick to your strategy, know what you want to do, and then do it soon and not really panic and find something when it's actually crisis mode. But for businesses, like you are saying, you must diversify. Don't also rely on one customer. We're finding in this crisis, entrepreneurs and businesses that are heavily reliant on one customer are going to suffer a lot. You must have many different customers. You must have many different products, in as much as you specialize and you're good at products. Don't have just one product. Have many products, or 2 or 3, that you can actually build your business in, so that in crisis mode you can balance each other out.
Thank you. Thank you. Tlingiwe, I'm going to ask you, we've had a question come through. If we can just mute ourselves when we're not talking, not sure, so there's no background noise. Great, thank you. Tlingiwe, I think this would be a great question for you. We've got a question coming through that says, with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's really impacting heavily as well as adversely businesses that are in their infant stages, 0 to 2 years even, I would say. So what is the DTI looking? Are they looking at creating or relaxing any funds to assist the companies to sustain or even just to survive these challenges? And if yes, how is this message getting to the people on the ground? You touched on it in terms of giving payment relaxing terms, but interest is still being capitalized and companies are just not able to. So what would you say on that?
So what we've done from our perspective is actually engage the DTIC and obviously they would engage National Treasury, because we've said to them the funds that they gave both ourselves and the IDC were focused on finding businesses that are going to produce the products we need. So people who are going to make masks and so forth. But as you are saying, there's a myriad of other businesses that are in trouble because they just don't have enough cash flow. So the businesses that are lucky enough to be within our portfolio as the NEF, obviously, we had to set aside a fund that we called a Critical Needs Fund, but that is just for businesses that are our own clients. But we have now applied to the DTIC, and we told them that this is the reality of small businesses. Some of them don't even need like millions. They just need money to pay insurance so that their trucks can stay on the road, because if they don't pay the insurance and something happens, they've lost their business. They just need money to pay rent, because the landlord, also has their own pressures from their funders, so they don't have the luxury of just, making you occupy their land or their buildings for free. So we are working on setting up a critical needs fund that will respond to the working capital or just short-term cash requirements of businesses. I mean, the UIF TERS scheme is great, but the reality is that for some businesses, it gives them like 10% of their payroll. So what do you do with 10% of your payroll? So you do need, and the balancing act will be to get funding that will actually not kill the businesses post the pandemic. So if you look at the funding that we are providing for the manufacturing of products, the DTIC has said the first 12 months the interest is 0%, and post that the interest is, I think it's 5% or 2.5%, but it's very low. So it's easy for the businesses to be able to repay those loans. So we are engaging with government to really find concessionary funding, because big businesses who've been around for a long time are struggling to access the 200 billion guarantee facility with the banks. Like, there's people with track record and so forth, they are struggling. I mean, one of our clients was asked to give input towards the Minister of Small Business in highlighting what businesses are finding as challenges in accessing this. So can you imagine if you're an SME that has been around for a year or two, you will not get that money. So the honest truth is that at the moment there is nothing. There is nothing for businesses. I mean, as I was saying, those who are lucky enough to have been funded by the NEF, there is something for them. But in the bigger scheme of things, there is nothing for businesses, and we are engaging government to say we do need to find solutions because businesses are suffering. And the funny thing is that people, automatically assume that businesses that are in the healthcare sector are going to do well during this crisis. And the reality is that they are struggling the most.
Thank you, Tlingiwe. And as Mamecha had pointed out, honesty is so important. So I'm so glad in terms of how you answered that. And we're looking for these solutions. I hope you can find it for the sake of our entrepreneurs soon. It really is a need. And if we have to get out of the recession, we have to support our small businesses. So I think that's going to be critical. Toli, I have a question. I think this would be the best for you to answer. We've received another question that says, and I think it talks to what yourself and Mamecha have been saying. Funders have changed their approach and they are focused on protecting their existing investments, due to the crisis that they're facing. So there's less appetite to invest in new businesses or sectors, or even newcomers, who have a great idea and they want to access that type of funding. What would you say to that?
My answer would be, Malisela, definitely there is a survival mode for all the funders to say, let's not lose money. Most of the funders are panicking to say, oh my God, we've got like billions of rands in the markets and we don't want to lose that. So I think that's the first instinct, to try and manage the portfolio that you do have and make sure that it does well. We've also seen the same thing. Even banks, for example, they're saying to us, we can't look at this application for now, but because we're concentrating on the portfolio that we do have. However, there are various funds that have been made available. I'm actually trying to share a website here. It's cfa.finfind.co.za and then /COVID-19. I don't know if admin can help me to share that to the participants. It's actually a website that summarizes all the private sector and the public sector funds that are available, not only for people who are doing things towards alleviating COVID-19, but also businesses who are struggling at this point in time. So all the banks, all the DFIs, and there are many, and government as well, there are many different options that are available. However, I always say to entrepreneurs, if you are wanting to start a business, funding should be the last thing that you should worry about. You shouldn't worry about where is the money going to come from. Worry about your business first. Do you have contracts in place? There's a lot of preparation that you can actually do while you're waiting for the banks or the funders to open up, because I'm sure in the next month or two they'll be available. So in the meantime, find contracts, sign contracts, find employees, start. So if you have sellers, start working with them. There are things that you need to do as an entrepreneur that don't need you to have funds. I know entrepreneurs are always saying, where am I going to get the money from? But honestly, the money will come. Have a great business and you will definitely raise the money. And in the meantime, do something. I mean, I'm sorry to quote from the Bible, but the Bible says, whatever your hands find to do, just do it. So if you want to do something, if you have a job, do it on the side, do something from where you are, and the money will come as time goes on.
Thank you. Thank you. Mamita, I want to ask you this question, and you know, you touched on sectors of the future. So there's a lot of talk, and I've read a lot, and even for entrepreneurs, the concept of a sharing economy emerging from this. You know, your Ubers, your Airbnb, all have been built on the back of sharing economy. And as we see youngsters in sustainability and you know, the driverless cars, looking at how that technology can be used to share, because I'm at work working from home the whole day, you know, so why not share? So there is a lot of talk that capitalism is there, but what will emerge from this is the sharing economy. What are your thoughts on that?
Fatima, thank you for that question. I mean, this is something very close to my heart. When we started Mosha Capital, our tagline is inclusive prosperity. And I remember, you know, back then in 2013, people would chuckle at it on this being inclusive. Where we're going, and I think COVID-19 actually, between COVID-19 and having millennials come up the ranks in the workplace, unfortunately life has changed. We need to always create inclusiveness. I mean, from an investment point of view, I think right now, you cannot actually go anywhere unless you have an ESG strategy. What are you doing to the environment? What are you doing to this on social? What is your governance structures like? This in the past, I would say in the previous capitalist world, it used to be the last thing. It was the soft issues, that and impact and your communities and your stakeholders used to be the soft things. But now, I think we're all very much alive to the fact that this is actually the first thing you should consider when you look at the future. And I think, you know, as entrepreneurs, we need to adapt ourselves. For me, it's a personal thing that, you know, it does not make sense. I mean, I come from a place where I used to be surrounded by mining companies. And I used to wonder when I went to my great-grandmother's house, why there was life at that place and not at my great-grandmother's. Those times are gone. We need to actually, even in our own, if you want to win as a business, you need to actually put the social aspect at the forefront as well. In fact, when talking about funding, when you look at funding currently, you will see that even funders are looking at, you know, they're starting to set up funds that are impact-based. So, you know, there's a lot of impact investment, and even fund managers are evaluated on impact. Banks are starting to set up various structures to support a sharing economy. So, as an entrepreneur, be it in finance or in other industries, you need to actually make sure that when you talk about your business, be it when you're raising funding, when you're looking for investors, shareholders, make sure that you also bring out this element. It's no longer, it's a business imperative. It's no longer a nice to have. And on the sharing economy, I mean, what you're mentioning, I mean, I think, yeah, we're starting to think differently. And I think with the millennials coming into play, also as businesses, we need to think differently on how we run our businesses. It's not about how long you've been at the office, clocking in at 8 to 5. It's about output. Most millennials want to have more than one life, you know, DJ by night, you know, financier by day. So, you know, we need to be more adaptable and include inclusiveness and impact.
Thank you, Mamecha. As you're saying that, I'm picturing myself and I'm sure my peers for exactly the same reason, where we do have multiple lives. And I mean, coming into this, you know, my boss scheduled a review and I'm like, listen, you know, I'm part of this and I need to go and facilitate. So I will be leaving now. And you know, it's so amazing to see how times have changed, that even for them, they embrace it because they can see that there's so much more value that we can bring when we participate, and we're more than just that. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I will open for closing remarks from the panelists before I wrap up. And Mamecha, I'll give you the go first from your side, closing remarks for our entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Fatima. I mean, one, I think that times have changed. I'm going to sound a bit somber and then I'm going to be a little positive. Times have changed, and, you know, in Jack Ma's words, if you survive this year, you've won. You really have won. Survive as a person and also survive as a business. So survival is key. Pivoting is key. And also, if you're in a business that already has great cash flows, you're in a very good place. On a positive note, I mean, you know, I did another webinar like a week ago, and I was tasked with talking about the markets and where we're going. You know, the JSE did fall drastically when at the beginning of COVID-19, but has picked up. And with every crisis comes very great opportunity. Right now, we're in South Africa at a recession, and the recession started even before COVID-19. What it means is if you have good ideas and you have a great business, people will pick it up. The M&A activity that we've seen, if you have a good business, people with cash are looking to pick up great businesses at a cheap price. So as much as we believe there's no money, there are businesses with money. So strategic investors that are sitting on the JSE, you know, if you have a great business, don't be shy to approach them. Of course, it will come at a discount, and you can always work in how you actually realize the upside at a later stage. But it's not all doomsday. You know, pivot, come up with new businesses, but also look for different investors that might want to acquire you at cheaper prices now, but you can always work out an upside to what you do. Thank you, Fatima.
Thank you, Mamecha. We have received another two questions, which I will give one to Hlengiwe and one to Xoli, and once you've answered that, you can then wrap up with your closing remarks, if that is fine. So, Hlengiwe, I'm going to ask you this one. You know, given the pandemic, we are seeing a shift towards the digitization of businesses with product offerings and services going online. Everyone wants to go online. So for startups that are looking at entering the space of being a tech company, what would you say would be the best funding model for this type of company?
I think what we have realized with the small tech companies that we founded is that it has to be very, very soft kind of capital. It has to be equity, some quasi-equity, because they just don't need the strain and this, because it takes a bit of time for it to build up in terms of revenues to get that critical mass. So you must not look at it as a short-term thing. Like to say, you can't look at it as an accountant, and it is so difficult for accountants not to look at things as accountants, because it's not like a straight line. This is when the curve is going to turn. You have to understand that the world is evolving. This is where businesses are going. The business I was talking about, the first time I met with those young guys, and they were telling me, artificial intelligence was. I mean, to be honest with you, what sold me was their passion and commitment to say, wow, those kids, And initially I was like, I don't even know if this thing is going to work, but, they are so passionate. They really understand what they want to do. Maybe, let me make sure that, the NEF backs them. And when the team went to the committee, like initially I was like, what are you guys talking about? And we said, okay, can you just hear it from them? We arrange for them to come because it's a world that is different to the world we are used to, and most of the decision makers are our age. We're old. We're used to doing things a certain way, but this pandemic is really forcing us to rethink how we do things. I mean, when the lockdown happened, one of the questions was, how are we going to sign legal documents? It was, for us, we want a piece of paper that is printed and I put my physical signature, but we've had to learn and relearn, and we continue to learn. So definitely online is the future. Manager was talking about the app, 60 minutes app, delivery app from Checkers, because now, I mean, the numbers are growing. Who wants to go to the shops and expose themselves? So we understand that is the future, and that's what the consumer, because I mean the older generation is getting less, the younger generation is more. That's what the consumer understands. So as financiers, we need to adapt ourselves to say, how do we make sure that we invest in the businesses of the future? So that has been our take. But just as closing remarks, I think all crises come with opportunities. And I was in another meeting yesterday with a professor who works at Trendwater, and one of the hard truths that this pandemic is making all of us realize is how unequal our societies are. So in this, I mean, all of us, we just go to our houses, we open the tap, we have running water. So when they say wash your hands, it makes sense. You can wash your hands. But there are over 2 billion people in the world who don't have access to readily available water. It's opportunities for entrepreneurship. How do we make sure that these things that are just so basic to most of us, how do we make sure that the people who don't have them actually get them? At the NEF, we call ourselves funders with the soul. So when this pandemic happened, we grouped ourselves as the employees. So the company itself contributed to the Solidarity Fund, but we said as the employees, what is it that we can do? So we all contributed money, and then we went to the private sector, we leveraged, and we wanted to go to villages. I was sent to a rural village in KZN, and the reality, colleagues, we take so much for granted. So our level of thinking when we think of opportunities and entrepreneurship is to also have that, social conscience to say, how does what I invest in make a difference in the lives of the society and the people around me? When we're talking about self-isolation, one of the ladies who assists me in the house, because I've got 6 children, there's no way I can do all those things on my own. Initially we said she must stay at home, and she was saying, Mama, I have 3 children, I live in one room. So if we are asked not to even leave the house, I can't. I need to come to. So we had to find ways of her coming to work without using public transport, so that she's out of that depressing environment. So we take so much for granted. We'll just say, oh, why are people, so as professionals, as entrepreneurs, as people who are more exposed, what are you doing to make sure that the leaders that we vote for and so forth, do the right things by us and by our people? Because, we think we are suffering, but this pandemic has really exposed how unequal or unequal our society is. So let's be responsible entrepreneurs. Let's choose investments that will not just give us money, but that will make a real difference in the lives of the people around us. Thank you so much, Fatima.
Thank you, Hlengiwe. I will, Xoli, I'll ask you this question, and then you can also give us your closing remarks. So this talks in terms of creating an inclusive economy, and although very important, when I look at the triple BEE levels of companies on the JSE or the lack thereof, it's easier said than done to actually create one. What are your thoughts about where the right place would be to start for this to become a reality?
Thank you for that question. I think in terms of transformation, it's a battle. It's actually a struggle that we all have to participate in. There isn't one person who can win it by themselves. As the apartheid government, for example, they had their own agenda and systems, and they made sure that everyone is pushing that agenda. So it wasn't only the politicians, it was the business people, it was the laws, it was the judiciary, it was the education system. So it was the whole network that was planning to make sure that this apartheid regime succeeds. So I think in terms of BEE, it's the same thing. We have to fight it on different levels. So we have to fight it from government, from policies, and each department to work with the other departments. So what we've seen in bill making is that one department, for example, the Department of Health, will be responsible to make sure that the healthcare cost goes down. But then the Department of Trade and Industry, on the other hand, wants to make sure that Black businesses are supported. But the two are not necessarily always aligned to make sure that Black businesses are supported to lower the prices of healthcare. So I think we have to work together as a people, as an industry, and have our own businesses. I think that's the main theme that I've seen, to say, okay, we're not going to change anything if we're waiting for someone to do anything. My mother always says, government is not going to do anything for you. You have to do things for yourself. So I believe that we have to start somewhere and start our own businesses. If we can acquire businesses and start the change wherever we are. And we are seeing that if you have the ability to have businesses that you own, you're able to appoint the right CEOs, you're able to implement the right policies, you're able to have a responsible company that is not excluding other people. You find other people are not even realizing that, the white people are not realizing that there is a segregation. But I think in this lockdown as well, I'm seeing that the vulnerable are actually finding a voice. So I'm also, together with the panelists, saying there are opportunities for everyone to participate in. So BE, broad-based BE time is now. If you're entrusted with the position of being a trustee, there are so many community trusts. Make sure it's a real trust that is benefiting the people. It mustn't be a trust to play with that money and it ends up in the hands of the white people. So I think wherever we are as people, as professionals, whichever role that you're occupying in the community or in the business world, make sure that you are speaking for the vulnerable, that you are making the right decisions. You know, whenever we also go and raise funds from people who are controlling funds, we find Black people. You find one or two, or you find many Black people. But we find that we're not always supporting each other. So I think we have to support each other, support each other's businesses, and know that it's a multi-pronged approach to change this country. And I think now is the time to take hold. As the current businesses are being shaken, I believe that the triple BE time is now for us to find those good opportunities and use the funding available to start our own businesses, even for banks. I mean, there was a discussion about having our own bank that will be corruption-free and actually make a difference. So, yeah, I think the future is bright for all of us to work together. Thank you very much, Fatima.
Thank you, ladies. It has been such an enlightening conversation, and I'm sure our guests have also learned so much. And it's so nice to see that as we come in and as a young entrepreneurs and upcoming, whether it be in our professional lives and what we're trying to do, that the support is there. You are out there, you're willing to give us the time and the guidance, and very strong themes coming across through this that I also believe ties into what we saw in the Mahube Roundtable for the Entrepreneurs Forum we had previously, where the theme was that opportunities are there and they come out of crisis. It is for us to grab them, and it's the same recurring trend and voice I'm hearing with you as well. So it's about us looking, applying ourselves, seeing how we can make a difference, make an impact, create that inclusivity. It starts with us and within our networks and making the change, and together then we can, because once we work together we can make the changes that we need to. The importance of having the open mindset, adaptability, and asking ourselves, what impact am I wanting to create? Am I in it for the short term or for the long term? What's my strategy, and how am I going to stick to it? And reach out and ask until the doors open and you get what you need to do. And the importance, whether we call it a sharing economy, an inclusive economy, or in whatever way we term it, it's no longer just about profitability. It's about the space that we're impacting. It's about our society. It's about our communities. It's about our values and what we want to bring, and shaping our businesses according to that. And that's my key takeaways and what I've heard from all of you. So I'd like to thank you for your time again, for gracing us with your presence and your wisdom and sharing with us what you've experienced and what you think. I'd also like to thank all our guests. I know we started a bit late and we overran slightly, so thank you for your patience, and I hope you have enjoyed this chat and discussion as much as I have, and there's been learnings that you can take from this. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Fatima.
And thank you to everyone.
Thank you to fellow panelists. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.